outside the confines of just parental engagement being our traditional mother-father. Parental engagement, we want to think about anybody who is in charge of the well-being and the care of our children. And so again, I'm Dr. Femi Skanes. I am the founder and CEO of Leadership Edge LLC. At Leadership Edge, we believe that leadership is a lifestyle, parenting is the promise, and equity is essential. But aside from being the founder and CEO of Leadership Edge, I am excited because I stand shoulder to shoulder with you all as a high school principal. And so, what I'm talking about today are lessons that I've learned over my time as a high school principal, and they are lessons that I'm still continuing to learn and lessons that I'm still putting in practice. You will get resources from today because I know as a practicing school administrator that we hate to go to any type of professional development and not walk away with tools that we can actually go back and utilize at our schools immediately. And so I ask that you all fully engage. Any good teacher will make sure that I drop in some opportunities for some engagement. So we will go ahead and get started. And so my why. So when we talk about family and community engagement, I want you all to think for a second. I want you all to think about a child, maybe your own child, maybe a niece or nephew, maybe a grandchild, maybe a godchild, maybe a kid in your neighborhood, right? Think about a kid whom you love deeply. You want them to be absolutely successful, and you'll do anything for. And I want you to keep that child in mind as we spend our time together. So, my why today, I do have three children of my own. Two are in college, and one is a junior in high school. And so, of course, they're my why, but I want to talk about my newest why, Kofi. So, Kofi is my 6-week-old cousin who's actually more like my nephew. His mom and I are cousins, but we grew up together very closely. Kofi was a little bit of our COVID surprise, and Kofi is now my why. And so the reason that he's my why is because he's a kid that I'll be in charge of helping to make decisions for, trying to find the schools that are best for him, trying to make sure that he's connected to every single opportunity. And so I will go to the ends of the earth to make sure that Kofi has everything that he needs to be successful. And I want you all to think about your why. And then I want you all to think about those little faces, whether they are preschool, elementary, high school faces. Those little faces are the whys of their parents. And so we can never forget that regardless of how parents come to us, sometimes we think about helicopter parents, sometimes we think about parents that are a little bit over the top, but they think about their why. And I never want us to lose sight of that, okay? And so by the end of this session, we are going to develop you'll be able to develop a strategic engagement plan that increases parent engagement. You're going to be able to utilize what we're calling a Super 6 Parenting Fix framework. So there'll be 6 quick tips that you can actually utilize to help improve and increase parental engagement. And then you're going to be able to think creatively, think a little bit differently about creating a successful parent engagement strategy. And so all of the resource materials that I'm going to be sharing today are available at this link, and the link is also available in the chat. And so for just a second, what I want to do is I want to show you when you log in, you'll be taken to this site and you'll get a copy of our slide together. We're going to do a quick little pre-test today because any good teacher gives some type of assessment. You will also get a parent engagement planning template, and then you will get the Super 6 tips in one little quick snapshot. So again, Arlen has dropped those in the chat for us, and so I encourage you all, whether you want to use them now or you can come back to them at a later time. So we have a pop quiz. The quiz will take us approximately 2 minutes, maybe 90 seconds. And so we are getting that quiz dropped in right now. So if you click on pop quiz, you will have questions that you have to answer. And we just want to start out seeing if we really have a good understanding between the difference of parent engagement and parent involvement. The time on my clock is now 3:09. At 3:11, we will come back together.
And Femi, just to let everybody know, I posted the link to the quiz in the chat. It's the Google Doc, correct?
It is the Google Doc.
Okay, I just posted that in the chat, so you should be able to, you can't click on Femi's slide, but you can click in the chat box for the Google Doc. It's the second link.
So I wonder how you did on those parent involvement and parent engagement questions. And believe it or not, when I took the quiz myself, I actually got one wrong. And so today we're going to be talking about parent involvement versus parent engagement. When we talk about parent involvement, we're talking about doing something to parents. But we really want to begin to shift to parent engagement, and that is doing with parents. And so these two visuals will help us think about the difference. On our little red guy here at the podium, he's an example of parent involvement. Not bad, right? So we're there, we're talking to parents, but we're giving them information. We really want to shift to parent engagement, in which we're listening to parents, we're hearing their voices, and we are working together. And so a lot of times we're like, we want to get our parents more involved. But one of the reasons that we might be struggling is because we um, involvement is very much at a lower level. What we really want to do is figure out how to get our parents engaged. And so again, we're moving from parent involvement to parent engagement. I love these Super Six strategies. It is a framework that I've kind of pulled together a bunch of different resources. The Super Six Parents and Fix. One of the great things about the Super Six Parents and Fix, in a lot of ways, you will find that this is not necessarily rocket science, but as practicing school administrators, sometimes we just need a reminder of those best practices. And then sometimes we need a reminder of things that we know how to do, but we may just need a fresh approach to doing things that we've tried in the past. So, Super Six Parenting Fix number one, we're going to talk about a strategic engagement plan. One of the things that I know is that we spend a lot of time really developing goal setting plans. We develop, school improvement plans, and we develop all types of plans. But very rarely do we develop plans that are specifically devoted to strategic engagement of parents. And so, what we want to talk about today is the importance of these strategic engagement plans. And so, number one, we want to really spend time. We want to set aside time for family and community engagement and strategic planning. Number two is something when we begin to think about this a little differently. We want to dedicate a person who is responsible for maintaining fidelity to the plan. Oftentimes, the school principal and the assistant principal, maybe, we're quite busy, and so a lot of times we're thinking about, how can I get more parents involved, how can I get more parents engaged? But honestly, we really need to have a person that this is their role and their responsibility to make sure that we are constantly engaging with parents. When we don't have a person that's dedicated to strategic planning and to engaging with parents, what we find out is that we spend more time with parent involvement, which we're talking to parents instead of spending time with parental engagement. And the reason being is simply because, honestly, school principals and assistant principals just don't have the time for deep levels of parent engagement. So you really want to think about who on your team is responsible for parent engagement metrics. And then we want to be clear about our family and community engagement goals and their alignment to student achievement. So, do we want more parents just to come in because we're able to check a box and we can say at this event we had 100 parents? Or do we want to be able to say at this event we had 100 parents and the impact on student achievement is what? And so, what I'm going to talk to you all a little bit about, this tool is actually available for you on our resource page. It is a tool that is a strategic engagement plan. I'm going to pull up a copy of the strategic engagement plan and what it looks like in real time. And so, in our strategic engagement plan, well, we want to begin with our mission, our vision, and our core values. So as a school, those are the things that we know that we're already working towards. And then what are your overarching school goals? What are your 3 to 5 goals that you want to focus on? Number three, you want to think about what are your parent engagement goals that support your overall school goals. So if you want to increase your number of students that are entering or graduating from high school from 80% to 85%, then what parent engagement goal will you need to set to help you reach that school goal? If you want to improve literacy achievement as measured by, let's say, DIBELS from, X to Y, then what parent engagement goal will you need to set that supports your overall school goal? And then we will begin with our action plan. So for each of your school goals, l- we want to make sure that you have a parent engagement goal that aligns to it. And so in this document, which is available for you in a Word document, so feel free to use it with your teams for each of your goals, then you want to think about what strategies align to those goals. And so I want you all to think about just for a moment, have you spent time really developing your strategic engagement plan? You want to begin with your goal. You want to think about how you'll measure progress. And then what activities, goals, and other strategies are aligned. And so, if you notice, we didn't just start with a bunch of activities. We started with a very clear plan that was clearly aligned to student academic outcomes. And so, again, as a practicing school administrator, I understand the importance of walking away with tools that you can actually use. So, our quick takeaway strategy. Our quick takeaway strategy for our strategic engagement plan goal is that we want to dedicate time once per quarter to review your strategic engagement plan. Again, this will be easier to manage if you have one person who's dedicated. And then you want to identify what have been your areas of success for your parental engagement, and then what will be your focal areas for your upcoming quarter. Now, the vast majority of us are still in remote learning, and so we are having to do parent engagement in a way that we've never had to do parent engagement before. And so I'm going to, for each of our strategies, I'll also give you one remote learning tip. So here's a quick tip, something that we forget about, but it is vastly important during remote learning. We have to ensure that we have a parent email address on file for every single family. And so before we knew that email was an additional way to communicate with families, but right now, most of us would agree that email is our primary means of communication. So I would ask that you all come up with a process to really scrub your student records to make sure that you have a working parent email address on file for every single one of your families. That way you can make sure that as you're setting your goals and that you are having any events that are available for parents, even in a remote environment, that every single family is getting the information. So again, our strategic goal number one, our parenting fix goal number one is strategic parent engagement plans. Number two, it is the importance of creating a welcoming environment. A welcoming environment is critical to the overall success of a strong family and community engagement plan. And so I want to read something to you. I probably have had this for over 10 years. I can't even really remember where I got it from, but it's something that's always resonated with me. And it came from a book called Build Community. I put a really just an old, worn, tattered copy in our resource file because I think that it is worded so nicely and it really makes us think about how we are engaging or how families feel when they come into our school environment. And so it goes like this. There were many times when, as a new teacher, I didn't know how to respond when veteran teachers made disrespectful comments about students. This happened again further into my career when I joined a new staff. I didn't want to alienate my new colleagues, and I didn't know what to say when they spoke disparagingly about students. I heard comments like these. That kid is going to end up just like his older brother. You're wasting your time on him. What can you expect from him? You've met his mother, right? She doesn't care about her grades. I've been assigned to teach reading intervention to our delinquents in training. Those parents don't care about their kids. I was often so taken aback that I didn't know what to say, or I got angry and said something that I later regretted, or I walked away. Then I replayed the incident 100 times in my mind and come up with all kinds of responses that I wish that I'd said. Here are some things that you can say when you hear comments that undermine the community you're committed to building with your students and families. That comment makes me feel sad. I feel uncomfortable talking about kids that way. My experiences with that kid or that kid's family have been different. I've seen so many good things. What makes you feel like they don't care? I wonder why it seems like he doesn't care. I'm curious to understand more about that. All parents care about their kids. All parents care about their kids. Maybe we just don't see or hear their care. All parents care about their kids. I like to understand how that mother expresses her love. I know that all parents care about their kids, even though it seems like their actions express a lack of caring. I wonder what's making it hard for me to understand their caring. So, a welcoming environment again is critical to the overall success. And I like how this particular author reiterates the point all parents care about their kids. And so that just takes us back to our why. I am a firm believer that the vast majority of parents, without regard to how they may behave, even when we have parents that behave in a way that conflicts with our core values or our moral values, that most parents actually care about their kids. They just all don't always know how to express that. And so we have to remember that parents also have their why. So, things that we want to think about. How are people greeted when they enter the doors of the school? Or are they greeted when they enter the doors of the school? And so, many times we talk about with our teachers, we think about parent teacher conferences and all of those good things. But are we doing training for our security officers? Are we doing training for our paraprofessionals? Are we doing training for our office staff to make sure that people feel welcome when they enter the doors of our school? What language is actually permissible when speaking about families? When we're in team meetings, is it okay for our staff members to say disparaging things about kids, or are they in their families, or are they held accountable for that language? And then, what does the messaging indicate about how the school feels about parents? And so, our strategy. When we hear something that's not necessarily positive about our families, we want to do a couple of things. We want to politely but firmly correct staff behavior that negatively describes our families. We want to use coaching questions or probing questions or stems that get to the root cause of the negative words that are used to describe families. In essence, what I'm saying is we can't let people just brush by being able to say anything because it actually helps to create a negative and a toxic environment, and parents can feel it when they walk in our doors. And so, a remote learning tip. We have to review and evaluate the messaging that is being shared with parents about their role while students are working from home. For those of you all who are engaged in social media, I have seen so many negative things on social media about parents being helicopter parents or being too involved in remote learning. And in many ways, as a school administrator, I have experienced where maybe we have some parents who are pushing the boundaries about what we think is comfortable for their role in remote learning. but we have to sometimes shift our lens and think that maybe the parents aren't necessarily trying to be helicopter parents, that maybe they're just trying to make sure that their children are successful in an environment that they've never experienced before. So when we think about the messages that we're putting out, even if we need to set boundaries like, hey, mom, hey, dad, we thank you for being involved. Um, when your child is in class, we're asking that maybe you could allow space or use headphones for your child to be able to engage with the teacher. And if you have any questions, here are ways that you can follow up. We can use that language, or we can say things like, we really need parents to allow the teachers to just do their job, right? We're saying the same thing, but the messaging is different. So we really want to make sure that parents feel welcome in our school community. So one, strategic planning. Number two, let's make them feel welcome. Number three, it's all about communication. Communication, the number one thing that I would say most parents complain about, okay? And go back to your why. You're my little Kofi. I want to know from the time we have to send Kofi to preschool until the time that Kofi gets the highest college degree that he's going to achieve. I want to know what's happening with his academic progress. And so do our parents. And so we have to think about our communication with them. And so many times we send out communication as communication comes to us, but I'm going to flip back to our strategic engagement plan. And I want us to think about how we set up a communication plan as part of this. And so I want us to think about everybody in your school community who has to send out information to parents. Who's the sender, or what team is the sender? What's their purpose? Who's the audience? What media are we using? And then what's the rhythm? How frequently are we sending that out? So when we do our strategic engagement plan, we want to make sure that we also have a really robust communication plan. That doesn't mean that we have to be sending something out every day. It just means that we should have a handle on the things that are being sent out. So for example, here's how we would set this plan up. So the principal wants to provide parents with school-wide updates. So who's the audience? The audience is going to be all parents and guardians. How is it being sent out? It's being sent out via email, and the rhythm is being sent out every Sunday. I would challenge all of us to make sure that we have a written communication plan so that we know how often our families are getting communication. And this also helps us to figure out, are we over communicating? Because when we over communicate, they actually just tune us out. So here is a quick strategy. I know that we're busy and sometimes we're like, I just don't have time for this, okay? But listen, this works. I promise you, this works. If you ever want to build trust, try this out. You want to set a couple of times a month to call families just for a well-being check. Not the families that you need to talk to them about their child's academic progress. Not the families that the child has done something wrong and you need to have a meeting. Just randomly call families just to say hello. This is what you do. You pull out your school roster, whether you're a big school or whether you're a small school, and you call the families of students that you do not know well. And then you use this as an opportunity to build relationships and to establish trust. So it goes a little something like this. I pull it out. I say, oh, okay, John. I don't know John very well. So I look him up in our school system and I just simply call John. Call us, hey, this is Principal Skanes calling. Just calling to say hello. Was going down my student roster and I realized that I hadn't talked to you all in a little while. And so I just want to check in to see how's everything going with your family? How's everything going with John? How's he, you know what? Let's pull up his grades. Let's see how John is doing in his class. Do you need anything from us? Okay, just checking in to say hello. You have my email address. If you need me at any time, listen, Mom, sometimes I can get a little busy and I can't always get back to you. But if I can't get back to you, send me an email and I'll make sure that somebody on my team addresses your needs. All right. Thank you so much. Quick. Takes me 20, 30 minutes once or twice a month just to say hello to a family. Now, a remote learning tip. While the physical school doors are shut, you want to provide clear guidance about how families can communicate with teachers, counselors, and administrators. So, what are your virtual ways that families can communicate? And here's another thing that I do, and it's been working really well, and something that you all can think about establishing. So, our district is a big Google district, and I have a Google a link that's set up. And it is my office hours. And so when parents need to be able, or if I need to have a quick meeting with a parent or a student, I use that same link. I say, hey, I just want to see if you have a minute to chat. So if I'm having an email with a parent, instead of it being an email exchange, it's something about being able to engage with people face to face. I send them that link, I jump on. It's the same way as if they were to stop by my office, right? So I have this virtual office set up that parents can jump in. That's just a quick remote learning tip, but make sure that you have very clear guidelines about how families can communicate, especially with teachers, counselors, and administrators. So, one was our communication plan. Two, our welcoming environment. Three is our communication. Number four is feedback. And so ask parents to provide input about the best meeting times and structures. Okay, so a lot of times we set meetings based on what's good for our school calendar, but sometimes we have to make sure that we are setting our meeting times based on what's good for parents. We want to analyze those results from the My Voice, My School survey to set our family engagement goals. What are our families saying, thinking, feeling, hearing? And then we want, when we think about setting our strategic plan, make sure they are data driven. Just like when we set literacy and math goals, they're data driven. We want our parent engagement goals to also be data driven. We want to ask parents for feedback at the end of each quarter. So when we do this, we want to ask similar questions in each survey as a way to measure progress over time. So the questions that we asked in quarter one, we want to make sure we ask similar questions in quarter two so that we can see if how do we do on goal A in quarter one compared to how did we do with it in quarter two. And so I want to share with you all a real experience that we've had at our school, a really a successful area, and it's been based on hearing from parents, really engaging with parents and hearing their need. So we have, again, I'm a high school principal, and we have goals set around our parent engagement. In some ways, I tell people I'm quite fortunate because I've worked at the elementary level, I've worked at the secondary level, and I've also worked at the post-secondary level. And so I understand that parent engagement looks different at each level, right? And sometimes parents don't always strongly engage as much when they get older. So we have to be more intentional about setting up things that are going to be beneficial for parents. And so when I think about what's beneficial, so we've surveyed our parents and we have these strong post-secondary goals, but what we realized is as we were helping to set plans for kids to select their colleges, many of the things that we just took for granted that parents knew, they really didn't know, right? Like parents may not have necessarily had a good understanding of the different types of colleges and what's a match school and what's a reach school. And so we set up a system well, we have these for our 11th grade students at the beginning of 11th grade. We have this big family meeting. We do it at 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning, and you would be surprised that we pack out the auditorium, right? 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning. I know a lot of times we don't necessarily want to give up our time as administrators, but the data says that that's what was good for parents. We provided with customized data, and we made it a real learning experience and activity, and our parents engaged with us for over 2 hours. The sessions have been so good over the years that they call up their friends and say, hey, you really, really need to be here. That's just one example of how we listen to our parents, how we use data, how we created an environment that was based on their time and their needs. And so we have been able to successfully engage our 11th grade parents in a way that's different than saying, hey, we're having a meeting, come out and learn about college. And so, a strategy for success and on feedback is something that we don't really do often, but I would challenge all schools to consider doing this. So, during your back to school registration, ask every parent to describe something positive that they would like the school to know about their child. And then we want to share this information with teachers as a way to foster positive classroom environments. So you could easily set that up as a Google Doc. They come in, you say, hey, you know what? Click right here, whether you have a drop down or put your child's name in here. Mom, I just want you to tell us something positive because you know how sometimes parents will come in and they'll say, oh, this one's going to be a handful. Oh, you'll have your hands full with this particular one. So instead of us having that deficit thinking, hey, parent, we really want to hear, hey, mom, hey, dad, aunt, grandma, whomever, we want to hear something that is great about your child, and then we want to leverage that. A tip during remote learning. We want you to send a simple survey to parents and students at the end of each quarter to solicit feedback regarding remote learning successes and areas of improvement. This is new to us, and the only way that we'll know how remote learning is working is to simply ask our families. So, strategy number 4 was feedback. 1, strategic planning. Number 2, welcoming environment. 3, communication. 4, feedback. Number 5, our partnerships. Our partners can be some of our best friends. So we want to leverage our partnerships to sponsor items and gifts for parents. We are always thinking about things for our kids, things for our students. Let's get some fun gifts for our parents sometimes. It's nothing like very proudly wearing the name of your child's school. We want to invite parents out for special occasions such as parent teacher conferences and back to school nights. Notice I use the word invite. So instead of saying, hey, this is happening, let's change our language. Let's make it an invitation. Dear mom, dear dad, dear grandma, you are invited to parent teacher conferences. And then we want to ensure that when we invite our parents out for special occasions, we also want to invite our partners out. And then we want to ensure that the partners provide more than information to parents, right? We don't want partners there just handing stuff out. We want partners there to say, hey, I have this resource available. And then we want to use partners to host parent engagement events. Many times our partners have the financing to be able to do things for parents that we may not be able to do. So, another one of our strategies, again, use our partners to sponsor gifts for parents. And then we want to utilize our relationships with partners to ask for promotional events or discounts to get free or low cost gifts for our parents. Some things parents love, some of the simple things. We know they love mugs and pens, but if you have a big sports school, think about things like skull caps for football games when it's cold, like, think about things like scarves. What are some things that we can give to parents as a gift that they're like, oh, this is worth coming out for? In our remote learning environment, another tip, again, we talked about utilizing partnerships, but we also want to think about having partners to sponsor items that students may need to be successful during remote learning. So things that maybe parents hadn't thought about buying, things like headphones, things like hotspots or musical instruments or art kits. Talk to some of your partners to see if they can help to sponsor or to underwrite the cost of some of these items. So again, strategic engagement plan, a welcoming environment, communication, feedback, partners, and then one that we don't always talk about, but it's actually okay to have a lot of fun with our parents. And so when we talk about fun, I wanted to remind us that engaging with parents does not have to be business as usual. It doesn't just have to be open houses. It doesn't have to just be our parent teacher conferences. We can really think about ways that we can involve our parents in a way that's fun. So we want to host events, again, that are fun and engaging for parents to attend. So as practicing professionals, when we get off of work, we don't want to go sit for an hour at another boring meeting, and neither do our parents who've been at work all day. Right. So we have to make it something that's fun for them. We know that we have to give them a lot of information, and there are times when meetings will be informational, but there are also times when we just want to make sure that it's fun. We want to leverage some non traditional events to engage parents. We want to, as administrators, we want to attend sporting events and host drawings for parents during halftime. So think about it. If we're at a basketball game and a football game, how great would it be to have a surprise drawing for parents during the halftime or in between those quarters? You can think about doing things like hosting paint parties for parents, or doing family paint parties together. And then you can also think about how you can use your Title One funds to allow parents to attend different parent conferences. And so I want to talk about another experience where we were able to really move from parent involvement to parent engagement in a way that's fun. And so I know for some of my sports fanatics that are on this webinar today, I'm about to say something that may just tear your heart out, but I'm not a football fan. By no means am I a football fan. As I've explained to my football players, I'm not sure why they're all running and hitting each other. It just seems like we could do something much safer. But I am a fan of kids, and I like nachos. And so I go to these games because I love children and because most of the time football games have nachos, right? And so I'm always at the football games. And so I started to notice, this was at my previous school, that we just weren't getting many parents to come out. And so as we know, kids are most successful when they have parents who are supporting them, when they have parents in the stand. And so I called a meeting, a non-judgmental meeting, and I required every one of my parents of my football players to attend the meeting before the boys will be eligible for the football season. I know that seems a little bit extreme, but it was that important to me. And so every single football player had a parent represented. And I told them, I said, I'm at the football games, and as much as the boys love for me to be at the football games, many of them have told me that sometimes they miss when you're at the football games. And like, hey, I know you all are working, but this year, I want you all to do something. I want you to commit to just coming to two football games this particular year. I didn't make it judgmental. I didn't make them feel bad they had not been there in the past. I said, let's just do something different. We got a bunch of games this season. Can you just commit? Please, mom, please, dad. Can you commit to just two games? The parents were on board. That particular year, we started to pack the stands. We packed the stands, number one, because I invited them to pack the stands. That particular year, when we moved from parent involvement to parent engagement and we started to pack those stands, that was the first time in the history of our district that we had a high school to ever advance that far in the playoffs. And so as I was talking to the football coach, and we were like, what was different? Yeah, the boys were different and they worked out differently and they had a good mindset. But we talked about it, and I said the one major difference is we had packed stands at every single game. And so just thinking about ways that we can say, how can we move from doing things the way that we used to do them to engaging with parents in a way that's fun. And so during in between the quarters or during halftime, I walked around and I talked to parents and I got to meet families. And, I was able to say, like, hey, we won't chat about it here because we're at a football game, but I'm going to call you on Monday. I need to talk to you about something. We started to see our families engage a little bit differently because we didn't start with a meeting, we met them out at the games. So, another strategy for parental engagement success is to create an end of the semester or the end of the year parent awards banquet. And you can use this as a time to celebrate parent engagement. Include as many parents as possible. Make this event a big deal. So, whether you have a classroom teacher nominate 2 or 3 parents who've been all stars, make it some type of an award where parents want to come out and they want to be recognized for being a part of their child's academic journey. And I also want us to really shift our thinking from parent engagement. Parent engagement doesn't mean the parent that's always at the school every time we open the door. It could be the parent that we can call up and say, like, hey, hey mom, hey dad, I know that you're busy. Maybe you're over the road truck driver and you can't be here all the time, but we have something coming up. Do you think you can drop this off, or do you think that you can help? So we have to really think about, we have measured parent engagement by how many parents sign into our events, but parent engagement really is about parents being not only present, but parents making sure that their child has everything that they need to be successful. And that doesn't mean that they're going to attend every event that the school hosts. Another remote learning tip: invite parents to virtual award assemblies. And so, in the age of remote learning, I want to make sure that we are still having virtual assemblies. Kids need us to celebrate them more than we've ever celebrated them before. Make sure that parents are there, that they can log on Encourage them to share successes with their families, share successes on social media. We have found a way for our attendance awards that we can mass produce them, and we literally can send out customized awards via a PowerPoint to every kid who's met their attendance goal in remote learning. And then we say to parents, hey parents, share your kid's success on social media. Our parents have been so excited to be able to talk about the fact that their children are still being successful in remote learning. And so, again, we started out with our strategic plan. We're creating a welcoming environment. We're thinking about how we're communicating. We're getting feedback from our parents. We're engaging our partners, and we are having a lot of fun. Again, these are simple, super six parenting fix. These are real things that we can take back into our school communities, and we can make sure that we are engaging with, not involving parents, but engaging with. Another reminder for those districts who get Title I funds, never, never, never let your Title I PAC funds go to waste. Make sure that we are using those PAC funds to engage with our parents. Remember, it's never too late to get parents engaged. So even those parents who have been maybe the parents that we've had a difficult time reaching, hopefully you can use one of these six strategies to think about how you can do something different to engage parents. It's never too late to reach some of our older parents. Don't think that just because they're in high school that, oh, those parents haven't been coming and they're not going to come. When we change our strategy and we fundamentally change what we're doing to engage parents, I believe, and I've seen it happen, that we can get parents engaged. I invite you all to continue to stay in contact with me. You can visit my website at fssleadership.com. You can send me an email, leadershipedge2020@gmail.com. I'm happy to always respond to emails. You can like my Facebook page at Leadership Edge LLC. If you don't do anything else for me today, I do invite you to go on Facebook, like the Leadership Edge LLC Facebook page. And then you can also check in with me on LinkedIn at Leadership Edge LLC. I ask for you all to just take a few minutes, provide me with your feedback. Arlen is going to drop the link in the chat for us today. So it will literally take you about 60 seconds to give me just a little bit of feedback. And then as a reminder, Leadership Edge does provide customized workshops to parents. And so some of our focus topics are really around parent engagement, around equity, multi-tier systems of support. And so if you're interested in any parent workshops or any assistance with parent engagement strategies, equity, or MTSS, definitely feel free to reach out to me. And so thank you for spending this time together. If you all are like me, your brains are more tired than they've ever been before. As I explained to some of my friends, hey, I did not learn how to run remote school. So this is new learning for all of us. And so hopefully these six parenting strategies are something that you can, one or two things that you can actually take away that you can get more parents involved. Again, you can always feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to answer any questions. So I'll put that back on the screen. And Arlen, I'm happy to open it up for some questions.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Dr. Skane, so much for sharing that wonderful information for us and those valuable strategies. I really appreciate how you put that together. We do already have some questions coming into the questions box, so we will get to those. And as Femi said, I posted the link to her evaluation into the chat. I will be following up with you all with the ISB evaluation too for our Illinois participants, so you can get your PD clock hour for attendance. And this session was recorded, so I'll be sending out the recording link tomorrow as well. All right, our first question comes from Ethan. He says, how would you suggest we contact parents who through remote learning are not responding to calls, emails, and we are not able to find during the home visits?
So you also can't find them during home visits. So let me make sure I get this straight. You have called them, you have emailed them and home visits and nothing.
Yes, that's what it looks like.
So I would do a couple of things. One of the things I would actually whether you so I may have somebody assigned to be able to do this. Right now I've been using my security since I don't have anybody in the building. And so if I'm looking for John, then I would have one of my security officers log into John's class, give John another link to say like, hey John, can you meet me over like in a private virtual room, right? Hey, John, been trying to get in contact with your mom. Do you have another number where I may be able to reach her? Real, just simple. Guess who has a number? John has another number for his mom. So, can you give that to me? That's one strategy. Another strategy, I always believe in the buddy system. And so, if I still can't get John's mom, I might ask who's John's friend. And then if I have a relationship with that parent, I might simply say, like, hey, I know John's mom's been pretty busy or John's dad's been pretty busy. Can you just let them know we want to check in with them and if they can give me a call?
Excellent. Thank you, Femi. Follow up here. Next question is from Sophia. What is the name of the book you are referring to? This was around strategy number 2. You were referring to a book. Do you remember,
So,
Femi?
yeah, well, I kind of do and I don't. I have had that PDF for so long. I really don't remember where I got it from. I've just kept it in my archives for so many years. And so I literally just have a copy that I have held on to. I put the copy in our resource. And so I believe that it came from a book. I've never even read the whole book, believe it or not. Let me go back to it. Um, but it just resonated with me so much that I held on to it. So I believe it comes from a book called, sorry, Arlen, Building Community, the Onward book. But again, sorry, haven't actually read it. Just kept the PDF.
Perfect. Thank you, Femi. Cameron's got a question here. What program is used to set up the office sign-up link?
So for my office sign up link, I use Google. And so I just create um, a standing Google link that if I wanted to meet with you, then I would just use the same link and I would say, like, hey, Arlen's meeting me at 10, and you can set the permission so only one person can be on at a time. You could do it, whether you're a Zoom district or a district or a Microsoft team meeting, just basically a link that you already have set up and available so that anytime you need to have virtual office hours, you have that link already available.
Excellent. Okay, Angela asks, thanks for the quick fixes and reminders around parent engagement. This was time well spent. So just a kudos
Thank
to you
you.
there, Dr. Scanes.
Thank you, Angela.
Annie, I'm not sure what this was in reference to. She says Google Voice text message.
Oh, I could see. Yeah, you definitely could use probably the first question about how can you get in contact with families. The text message feature is really good too. And we know there's so many apps now that are available, in which the apps are good, but I like the apps really more so at a teacher granular level. I'm still personally, when you have to get out some of that bigger information, I'm still a fan of email. But when we
Okay,
think about our communication strategy, you're going to have different ways that you communicate depending on what the content is that you're trying to communicate to families.
wonderful. Annie also asks, I haven't heard of the My Voice, My School survey. Is that available for all public schools in the US?
I don't know if it's available in all public schools. I know it's definitely utilized in Chicago and some other districts in Illinois. And so, if your school district is not using a My Voice, My School, I would say that every single district needs to have a comprehensive parent survey where you get feedback on how parents view how we're doing with curriculum, how we're doing with instruction, overall safety metrics. And so, the My School My Voice survey is pretty long and it's pretty comprehensive, and sometimes we don't always get the feedback that we want, but even if you get 25-30% of parents responding to it, that's a good enough population for you to see what's doing well and maybe where you need to make some shifts.
Okay. From Terrence, how do you rebuild trust in parent-school relationships?
Oh, so that's a tough one, Terrence. Well, number one, remember I talked about the strategy of just getting on the phone. Okay. Um, this year, without going into all of the specifics, I had one of my staff members make a really it was a mistake, but it could have been a really big mistake. And so I had to send out the official communication from the district, but those parents that were impacted by the mistake, though it took me a while, I got on the phone with each of those families individually and I apologized for the mistake and I let the parents know how we were working to correct the mistake. And so building trust is about building relationships. I would encourage you to go back to strategy 2, spend some time on that welcoming environment and make sure that you're having training and really setting expectations around how we expect our families to be treated when they enter our schools.
All right. Marla says, build a community. I thought that was the name of the book. So maybe that was that the book we were referring to, Build a Community?
Yeah, it might be Build a Community, the Onward book. Again, you all will see this is just a little copy that I have. It might be the Onward workbook, but if you go to and Arlen, maybe you can drop the link in there again so that they can get the resources. But the PDF that I read from today is also available on our resource page.
Very good. I will paste the link to all your Padlet resources in the chat here. So we got a fresh link there. Annie says, parents always respond to text messages.
They do. Um, I don't know how many districts where your district gives you a cell phone. Blessing and a curse sometimes, but I do have a district cell phone. I call parents from my district cell phone all the time, and they can text me on it as they need to text me on it. And I know sometimes people feel like that's a little bit invasive, but guess what? It's my second phone. So when I want to cut it off or when I need to shut it down, I'm able to shut it down. But as I need to be available, I can be available.
All right, we got a few more questions coming in. This one's from Christy. She's just giving a shout out. Great information and presentation. Thank you so much from here in Marion, Illinois. So that's a shout out to you, Femi.
Thank you, Christy.
Ina says, I've offered 10 parent workshops so far this year. Low attendance, exclamation point. What strategy should I use to increase parental involvement?
So remember, we're moving from involvement to engagement. And so when you created those 10 parent workshops, how were they created? Did you ask parents, what they wanted, or did you all make a decision about what you think parents needed? And so we've done a couple of things this year, and maybe the attendance wasn't what we thought. So I do a couple of different things. Number one, I actually don't get down in the dumps when I don't have the numbers that I thought. I believe in not counting numbers, but making the numbers count. So if I only had 10 parents, then I'm going to work well with those 10 parents that I have. But I also utilize a bring a friend strategy. So when I have parent meetings, so say for example, our pack meetings, which I need to be working on some things with our pack. With our pack meetings, I say, okay, when we meet together in December, our goal for January is to bring a friend. Maybe half of them bring a friend, but if I had 10 and those 10 bring 5, then we have 15 more. Another thing, administrators, let's say you have between administrators and deans, you have 5, 6 people on your team. If you assign 2 to 3 parents or families per administrator, you all can make 15 to 18 calls and directly invite parents out. Direct invitations to parents is also really good. The holiday season is also coming, so think about some old school traditional, just sending out some holiday greeting cards to say we miss you, you're still a part of our family. Parents want to feel like the school is connecting with them. And I believe that was Ina that asked me that question. Ina, if you also want to chat, you can feel free to email me too, and I can think of some other ways that you can get more of your parents in, not only involved but engaged.
Wonderful. Angela says, CPS uses My School, My Voice. 5 Essentials is offered through the University of Chicago, and they are a partner with numerous states.
Yes, thank you, Angela.
And Ina's got a follow-up question here. Do you think a survey would be best right now to see what is needed by parents?
Yes, I have surveyed parents doing remote learning. If you use a survey, make sure you keep it short. You have 5, 7, 10 targeted questions at best, and make them easy to answer. But yes, you want to offer workshops that parents are interested in and not what you think that they may be interested in. So yes, surveys are still good.
Okay. Christy says, we use Class Dojo. It is the most effective form of communication I have used, added the app to my phone so I'm always available and can send out messages or reach out anytime. Class Dojo.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of parents that love class, parents and administrators that love Class Dojo.
Beatrice says, I'm a parent educator. Thank you so much because today you teach me the true work of my profession. God bless you.
Thank you. Yes, I'm also a parent educator, and believe it or not, my son goes to my school, and so that's a blessing and a curse. But it's great.
All right, another question here from Annie. What about tiny schools? I'm the principal and it's just me. Any ideas for big results for small time investment?
Yes. So I'm at a big school now, but I was at a small school. And so little things like what I talked about. So I would still say, because when you are a small school and you're trying to make everything happen, you can't do it by yourself. So really think about, even if you just get that part-time parent engagement person. And then it was actually at the small school where we were able to get the results with our football team by just saying, hey, let's just start with, something that's a little bit more social. So yes, you can absolutely do some of these things. You tap one or two teacher leaders who just have a heart for students, a heart for families, and say, hey, can you help me? I would say, even though strategy 6 was fun, I would argue that it could definitely be strategy 1. I like to have a lot of fun.
That's great. Okay, we've got time for just a couple more questions. It is 4 o'clock. I understand if you have to log out and get to another meeting or just get on with your day. But this one's from Ina again. How are you using your Title I funds during this remote season?
So, Title One funds during a remote season. First of all, Arlen and I laughed about this. Shameless plug number one: you could spend them with Leadership Edge, but which you really could. But in all seriousness, some of the things that we're doing for our parents, for an example, at the beginning of the I actually had title funds that rolled from, how they roll at the end of the school year. And so I used title dollars at the beginning of the year to hire a vendor, and she did a remote learning um, online training for parents so that they would know what to expect in an online training environment. I'm at a high school, but I also have a seventh and eighth grade program, and I really targeted for my seventh and eighth grade parents. And then I had another session for my ninth grade parents. And so that was one way that we were able to use our title dollars. And so now that we have had our official organizational meetings and all of that, we will still be having our monthly sessions. Some other things, like for an example, we may do like a virtual paint party. And so all of the things that we would do face to face is just a matter of finding a vendor. And then also don't forget, you can use your title dollars to send parents to conferences.
Oh, that's a great idea. Excellent. Okay, time for one last question here from Tanya. She says, how do engagement strategies compare from a school level, principals and APs, and district level leadership, equity, family engagement department? What if school leaders don't know where to start and are looking to the department to build a framework? Any tips?
Oh, that's a, a bigger question than my 1 minute. Yes, but I would say, at the district level, making sure that there's a district strategic engagement plan. So when you think about the district priorities, think about where the strategic plans will fit into. I would say that every school district also needs a person or a department that's dedicated to family and community engagement efforts, and make sure that you have teacher voice, student voice, parent voice, and administrative voice in the writing of that strategic plan. So it absolutely can be done. What I really want people to take away from this, there's not a magic bullet that we can just, say, hey, this is how we do it. It's really around intentionality. It's really around saying that I want my kids to be successful. And so because I want my kids, I want Kofi to be successful, then I have to think about how am I going to engage parents to make sure that Kofi is successful. And so it shouldn't just be something that I'm like, oh yeah, I meant to invite the parents. We should be intentional about making sure that our schools, that we set up our schools as communities again.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Skanes, for spending a little extra time with us here at the end and answering all of our great questions. Thanks to our participants who joined. As I mentioned before, this was recorded. I'll be sending out a recording link tomorrow. And for you Illinois participants who are looking for professional development clock hours, I will be sending out a link to an evaluation that, once complete, will send you the official ISB evidence of completion form. So be looking in your inbox for those things tomorrow. And I want to just thank Dr. Scanes one more time. And you are free to
Thank
close the
you all.
GoToWebinar control panel. And that will log you out of the session for today. Thanks, Dr. Scanes.
Thank you, and thank you all for spending this hour with me this afternoon.